Did Queen Margrethe of Denmark just give King Charles more ammunition to deny Archie and Lili the titles of Prince and Princess? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany and today we are talking about kind of the breaking news out of Denmark, where the Queen is actually stripping her grandchildren of her younger son of their Prince and Princess titles, and instead giving them the titles of Count and Countess, and what this could mean for Harry and Meghan and their children Archie and Lilibet. Because at this point, it has been 20 days since the Queen has died, and there has been no update on the royal website regarding the titles for Archie and Lilibet. They are still listed as Master Archie and Miss Lilibet. And I think this change in Denmark could actually give Charles more leverage in order to say, you know what, the rest of Europe is going with these lesser titles for those who are not in the main line of the family. And you know what? We're following suit. And we're going to give Archie and Lili perhaps the title of Lord and Lady, but not Prince and Princess, and definitely not that HRH title. And I think, again, that this news out of Denmark is great for Charles. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we provide compelling royal commentary and news. And so if you guys want to subscribe, that would be great. We also review television shows and movies, and we talk about history too. So I would just, if you love royals, I would love it for you to subscribe. We also have a fashion channel that will be launching next month, Royal Fashion News, which I'm so excited about. So if you're interested in that as well, I will put a link in the description down below. But like I said, today, this news out of Denmark was kind of earth-shattering. And it was earth-shattering for those who are involved in it as well. And not everybody is super happy about it. But yet, it makes a ton of sense and follows what the rest of Europe is doing in these situations. Basically because people, they like the glitz and the glamour of royalty. They like the regalness and all these sorts of things, but they're not quite as interested in paying for multiple members of the family to have titles. And for also people with titles, if you have a title, if you're a prince or princess of a particular country, no matter what you think, you do actually represent that country, because you know what? That country's name is in your title. That's kind of how it works. So it seems like Denmark has made this decision, the Queen has, and it's caused a lot of consternation. And it's interesting what this might mean for Harry and Meghan. So in her announcement, the court said, in April 2008, Her Majesty bestowed upon her sons and spouses and their descendants the titles of Count and Countess of Moutbatten. In May 2016, it was also announced that His Royal Highness Prince Christian, as the only one of the Queen's grandchildren, is expected to receive annuity from the state as an adult. As a natural extension of this, Her Majesty has decided that as of January 1st, 2023, His Royal Highness Prince Joachim's descendants can only use their titles as Counts and Countess of Moutbatten, as the titles of Prince and Princess that they have held up until now will be discontinued. Prince Joachim's descendants will thus have to be addressed as excellencies in the future. The Queen's decision is in line with similar adjustments that other royal houses have made in various ways in recent years. With her decision, Her Majesty the Queen wishes to create the framework for the four grandchildren to be able to shape their own lives to a much greater extent without being limited by the special considerations and duties that a formal affiliation with the Royal House of Denmark as an institution involves. All four grandchildren maintain their places in the order of succession. Tonight, Queen Margrethe actually went on a royal engagement to the National Museum in Copenhagen, and she was asked about this change. And go ahead and listen to the video. Obviously, she's speaking in Danish.
Deres Majestæt, må vi have lov til at stille et spørgsmål til dagens udmelding. Hvad er årsagen til, at prins Joachims børn ikke mere skal være prinser og prinsesser?
Det er en overvejelse, jeg har haft ganske længe, og jeg tror, at det vil være godt for dem i deres fremtid, og det er årsagen.
Så det er for børnebørnenes skyld?
Ja, selvfølgelig.
De udtaler, at de føler dem udstødt på grund af deres beslutning om at fratage dem deres titler. Hvordan påvirker den reaktion dem?
Jamen, det må man jo se, hvordan man... Jeg har ikke selv set det.
But here's what she said, basically. It is a consideration I have had for quite a long time, and I think that it will be good for them in their future. That is the reason. So it's for the sake of them, the reporter asks. Yes, of course it is. They state they feel ostracized by your decision to strip them of their titles. How does that reaction affect you? Well, you have to see I haven't seen it myself, I must say. Countess Alexandra, Joachim's actually first wife, she was very disappointed in the decision. She has been quoted as saying, "We are all confused by the decision. We are all saddened and in shock. This comes like a bolt from the blue. The children feel ostracized. They cannot understand why their identity is being taken away from them." And obviously this is a quite complicated situation. I don't blame them for being confused, a little bit upset about this, especially if you're a princess as a little girl, because every little girl dreams of being a princess, and all of a sudden being told, "No, I'm so sorry, you're no longer a princess, you're a countess," is difficult. Although we have been told Joachim has been in on these discussions for a while, but apparently something wasn't communicated, or they're just still generally upset about the final decision. But this goes along very much with what is happening in the rest of Europe. So for example, in Norway, only Princess Ingrid Alexandra, so this is Crown Prince Haakon and his wife Mette-Marit, this is their firstborn daughter, is Her Royal Highness Princess Ingrid Alexandra. So her younger brother is only His Highness. So again, it's a delineation of hierarchy there that they're starting to do, because she will be the future queen one day. Once her parents ascend the throne, she will be the crown princess, and this will happen with her children. Her first child will be an HRH, her next child will be His Highness, or perhaps they'll even change it. In Sweden, they've done a very similar thing. So the king, he has 3 children, and his 2 youngest children each have 3 children. And all those children have been stripped of their HRH titles. They're now just prince and princess. So Prince Julian, Princess Leonor, Prince Nicholas. So they don't have that HRH, they still have their dukedom titles. And so this change has been something that's been broadly coming throughout Europe. And it's something that I think is very much needed in this time, especially when austerity measures are being called into play. You know, the people are worried about the future of the country and economic issues and those sorts of things. It makes sense to narrow down the line. Denmark is also an interesting example. It's, a very small country. They do have kind of a provincial office a bit in Greenland. They have historic connections there, and I believe they, they kind of control that territory. Because Donald Trump, remember, wanted to buy Greenland. I don't know why that came to mind. Somebody made a comment in a video the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, he wanted to buy Greenland. No idea why. Anyways, so, but Denmark is, a very small country. It only has, I remember somebody quoted me as only about 6 to 7 million, I think. I think I said 8 or less than 10. I think it's about 6 to 7 million people. So it's a very, very small country. So it makes the austerity measures make sense, especially because Joachim's family is actually now living in France. Although his 2 oldest sons from his first wife, Alexandra, Countess Alexandra, still live in Denmark, his youngest children live with him and his new wife, Princess Marie, in France. And he's kind of was shuffled off to the side. And it's obviously become very clear as well in Denmark that only Prince Christian, so this is the oldest son of the crown prince and princess, will again be on the government's dime. These changes that these houses are making are trying to survive. They're trying to adapt to this new environment where royal families, yes, they're kind of an oddity, they're fun, people like them, but they also don't want them to cost too much, seem too ostentatious, those sorts of things. So these royal families have to walk this very careful line. And it's also difficult too because yes, you will hurt feelings. That's a challenge of this, is that yes, some people will be upset. And I think the older the kids are, so Prince Joachim's, his oldest 2 sons are, I think one's already in his 20s and he has another son that's, late teens. And so they've had these titles of princes for a long time. So to be stripped of them, I think is a little difficult because, you've had that title for so long. His younger kids, I mean, it's still, I think, tough. When it happened in Sweden, all the kids were still very young. And so I don't think it was like a huge, blow to their ego to go, oh, I'm not an HRH anymore. I think the oldest was Leonor and she was probably 5 or 6 when that happened or something like that. So she was very, very young. And so it just makes a lot of sense for them to streamline this. And the Sweden is just going with kind of the main line of the family. And when it comes to Sweden as well, Princess Madeline, the king's youngest child, actually lives in Florida. So she's perhaps dealing with the hurricane right now. And so her and her family live in Florida. They live in the Miami area, so they're not in the direct path. That's my understanding. Miami, Palm Beach, that's kind of where they live. So they live there. So she's even more kind of disconnected from the family. She's decided to do her own thing. She mostly wants to be a stay-at-home mom. She does some things for Sweden every once in a while in the States, in Sweden. Usually they spend their summers in Sweden. So there's very much this adaptation of those who are lower down in the line of succession making a different life for themselves outside of the royal fold without the burdens of the titles and what those titles usually represent in terms of doing certain things on not only on behalf of the monarchy, but acting certain ways, having more restrictions on you because of those titles. So how does this affect Meghan and Harry? Well, not in a good way, I don't think. I think this decision by Queen Margrethe gives Charles a ton of ammunition to say, like she said, most of Europe is moving in this direction. Ergo, I'm sorry, but they don't need these titles, especially living in the United States. They are thousands of miles separated from their royal cousins. And Archie and Lilibet have hardly spent any time in the UK. I think Lily has spent a grand total of 3 days there, you know, a little bit on each day. So maybe at the grand total, maybe 4 days. I mean, she's hardly spent any time in the United Kingdom. And Archie spent the first couple months of his life, but then has since been removed. So what we're looking at is 2 kids with basically zero connection to the UK, except for the fact that their father was born there and their mother spent about 18 months there until she decided it was too hard and she couldn't do it. Here's the thing about Meghan, and we talked about kind of what we got from the excerpts of Valentine Lowe's new book. Getting into a monarchy, adapting to it takes time. Meghan didn't give it any time. She just basically bolted as soon as it became a little challenging and she realized, well, people aren't just going to fawn at her feet. She decided, well, we can't do this. We've got to bolt. And I think, again, this puts Harry and Meghan, this does not give them a lot of leverage in this situation. Apparently, according to the Times of London, this question about the titles has come up kind of again and again. And here's what we got from them. And the Times of London is considered a very well-respected source. So when they say things like this, they publish the excerpts of Valentine Lowe's books. They had the bullying allegation. They broke that story. They had the excerpts from Tom Bower's book. So the Times of London is a very, very well-respected news source when it comes to these. And they have impeccable sources. And they protect themselves very well by making sure that everything lines up. So this is not kind of a gossip rag type thing, but here's what they've had to say on the situation, because again, it's been 20 days and there's been no movement and no information really about what is going on with Archie and Lili and will they get those prince and princess titles or not. King Charles has not decided whether to allow his youngest 2 grandchildren to use their new titles of prince and princess, heightening tensions with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Harry and Meghan are understood to fear the king may strip Archie and Lili of their titles after his reluctance to immediately recognize their elevated status after the Queen's death. As children of the sovereign son, Archie 3 and 1-year-old Lilibet, known as Lili, are automatically now a prince and princess entitled to be styled His Royal Highness and Her Royal Highness, something Meghan previously claimed Archie would be denied because he was of mixed race. But this is important to remember, is that the letters of patent is not something set in stone. It's something that can be amended. And I think Charles is taking this time, which is smart, to say, okay, well, number one, I don't know how the public feels about this. I want to make sure I get enough information that the public, if I give them whatever titles I give them, they'll be okay with that. Number 2, Harry and Meghan are loose cannons and they attack the monarchy constantly. That's their only thing they have to utilize, is attacking the monarchy. So ergo, because they've done all this stuff, you know, Charles is like, well, if they continue to attack us, why should we give them prince and princess titles? Because even when we try to please them, we've seen this in the Valentine Lowe book, we've seen this in the Tom Bower book, even when they try to please Harry and Meghan, it's never ever enough. So I think even giving this to them, they still won't be happy about it. Even if they have prince and princess titles, they'll still be like, well, you know, you didn't give us the HRH, you didn't give it to us quickly enough. They don't have this elevated status. And I think some people are right in that people are kind of misjudging the letters of patent and saying they're automatically given this, whereas it could be interpreted legally that perhaps because they weren't grandchildren of the sovereign when they were born, they were great-grandchildren, they're not automatically given those titles. So, and again, letters of patent can be changed. They were changed for William's children. And Charles, I think, again, Queen Margrethe has given him more leverage to say, you know what, we're following the trends of Europe, which say those who are not in the main line of the family, especially those who are not living in the country where they have been given these titles, or would be given these titles really do need them. So it is understood that Harry and his father had a brief discussion in the days after the Queen's death, when the King asked if it was something Harry wanted for his children. Harry is understood to have expressed his desire to let his children decide when they are older, and to have emphasized that it would only be possible if they were allowed to retain their titles now. The conversation is understood to have ended unresolved, and to have left the Sussexes dismayed. But again, you look at this, it's kind of silly because Harry and Meghan just made a big fuss about how much they hate the monarchy, how much they hate Charles and Camilla and William and Catherine and all these sorts of things, and yet they hate and loathe the institution, yet they really want these titles, which again is hypocritical. And I think it hurts Harry and Meghan's argument that they still want these titles, and yet will do nothing to help the institution, will do nothing to help Charles, will do nothing to help William. I think this really damages their argument here. And in addition, they're not there. And Charles has hardly seen his grandchildren. It's been reported that Charles only saw Archie a handful of times when he was still living in the UK. And then I'm not sure, it's never been ever confirmed that he actually met Lilibet in person when she was in the UK for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Because remember, it was an exceptionally busy time, and Harry and Meghan seemed to go out of their way to avoid the family as much as humanly possible. And that just, A, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, because you should be there to support the Queen and the rest of the family. And B, it makes decisions like these, for Charles's sake, it should make them much easier, because he could say, you know what, you're not connected very well to this institution anymore. Why do you need these titles? And as Harry is saying, well, he wants the kids to decide when they're older, so they need them now. It's kind of like saying, well, if they have them now, like, they're not going to give them up when they're older. I mean, come on. Lady Louise could actually have chosen to become a princess as she became 18, but she decided not to do that. And let's be honest, Charles is older. I don't think he'll probably make it until Archie is 18, so I don't think Archie will be able to choose when it comes to that. And as well, I believe and I still think too, the danger is still, even if they get those titles, William could strip them later when he becomes king. So I think it makes a lot more sense not even to go with prince and princess titles, because I think, again, that elevates Archie and Lili way too much, given the fact that they have zero connection to the monarchy, really, is to just have them be Earl of Dumbarton and Lady Lili. I think that makes the most sense given the situation. So going back to the Times article, it explains William and Kate's new titles were instantly updated on the royal family's official website, but Archie and Lilibet's were not. A royal source said, for Buckingham Palace not to make those changes suggests that something is off. Why not just change everything and do it in that moment? Asked about the discrepancy, a spokesman for the king said earlier, updating love on a website doesn't quite work. We will be working through updating the website as we get information. Asked again several days later, a spokesman for the king said, the king is focused on the mourning period. It's unlikely you'll know the titles during that period. I'm sure that at some point there will be discussions. Last night, a senior royal source said that is still the status quo. And that article was actually from a couple of days ago, so I don't think things have changed. But this bomb that's gone off in Denmark, again, it gives Charles greater latitude to say, Norway's doing it, Sweden's doing it, Denmark's doing it. We don't have the same situation, although we don't actually know how this will play out. But the current king of Belgium, all his children are princes and princesses. But I'm sure it'll only be eventually that the oldest daughter, because she doesn't have children yet, her children will be perhaps prince and princesses because they are in the main line, whereas that won't be the case with her siblings. When it comes to Spain, we obviously have the Princess of Aurelius, so that is Princess Leonor, and we have Infanta Sofia. So Sofia actually already has a lesser title than her sister. And I think that's a bit more about how Spain is set up, is that Infanta is kind of I'm not sure. It's more like a lady title, I think, is how I've heard it described before. Like a dame or a lady title, that would be, or dame as in Italy, lady, that would be a similar title. So she is Infanta, so she already has kind of a lower rank there. And then we also have in the Netherlands, so the king has 3 daughters. So his first daughter, her children will be princes and princesses, but their other children most likely be countesses and those sorts of things, because that is actually how, so the previous queen, she's still living. The Netherlands has a tradition of voluntary abdication whenever they feel like the next heir in line is ready. And so she has 3 other she has 2 other children, and they have children, and they're all counts and countesses. Well, there's only one count. She only has 1 grandson. All the rest are granddaughters. So she has, I think, 7 granddaughters and 1 grandson, the former queen. So the main line was princesses. The rest are countesses and count. And I think, again, we will see this ripple continue to grow throughout Europe. And I think, again, Charles needs to say right now, no, I'm sorry. The rest of Europe is doing this, and we have to do the same for Archie and Lili. And it just doesn't make sense, as they don't live in the UK, and they don't really have that much connection there, except for their father and their grandfather, who they hardly see. So I think this is what we will see for Harry and Meghan, and I think they are deeply distressed. And again, they have not given themselves a good position for this, because Charles is like, you're not here. You don't talk to us. You don't interact with us. You complain about everybody. You trash the royal family. You make our lives more difficult, yet you want these royal titles. And he's just going to have to say no. And I think Queen Margrethe, again, is an ally. She's a great ally of the UK. And I think, although I don't think she did this because of Charles, but I think it does help Charles here quite a bit. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Do you think Archie and Lili will be given, like, I think Earl of Dumbarton and Lady Lily is the best they could do. I think that's what Charles needs to do. If he does Prince and Princesses, no HRH. And I think that's probably set in stone. But it remains to be seen, but I think it's a good sign that Charles is saying, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. We're going to go through the mourning period. We're going to wait, because we're not going to jump into this, especially with Harry and Meghan being as loose cannons as they are. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye.